Hi! In this video we're going to look at the tonality and the harmony of Setwork 6. That's the third movement from Steve Reich's Electric Counterpoint. Setwork 6 is in the key of E minor. However, at the beginning of the piece it's very difficult to tell what the key is because there really aren't enough notes to go on. This is called tonal ambiguity. We only get a good sense of the tonality at 58 seconds in when the bass guitars play an E, which is the tonic note, and that's when we realise that the tonality is E minor. Section B is marked by a sudden and dramatic modulation to the key of C minor. These two keys are not closely related at all harmonically, and to a listener from the classical era, it would sound very strange and out of place. However, throughout section B, the music modulates frequently, switching back and forth from B minor to C minor, and so after a while, this sounds quite natural. One last thing about the tonality before we move on. This is for you A-star students out there. Although it's quite correct to say that the key of the piece is E minor, technically there's one problem with this, and that is that in E minor, the fifth note of the scale is D sharp, and in this piece there isn't a single D sharp to be found. There are, however, lots of D naturals, and D natural can be found in the E Aeolian mode. So technically, if you want to be perfectly accurate, you'd say that the key of the piece is modal, and more specifically, it uses the Aeolian mode in E. Anyway, don't worry too much about this, E minor's fine. But if you want to find out more about modes, click on the links above. As I mentioned in a previous video, one feature of minimalist music is static harmony. And this is just a fancy term for saying that the music stays on one chord for a long time. This is true of this set work as well, but only really at the beginning where the tonality is still ambiguous. Once the bass guitars enter, we start to be able to make out the chord progression A minor, C major, E minor. When the music modulates at section B, we hear another chord progression coming through, which is A flat major, B flat major, and C minor. Now it's important to know that although there are chord progressions in this piece, the harmony here is non-functional. What this means is that the chords don't follow the normal conventions of Western classical music, with the hierarchy of tonic, dominant and subdominant, and punctuated by different cadences. In other words, these chord sequences don't follow any rules and they don't take us anywhere. Instead, they just repeat over and over, and they were chosen because they sound good. The piece ends on an open E5 chord. This is a chord that's had its third removed, so you can't tell whether it's major or minor. Let's try and spot these features of tonality and harmony in the set work. In the beginning we have an ostinato played by guitar 1 and then the live guitar, and gradually guitars 2, 3 and 4 also play this one ostinato. And it may sound like there are lots and lots of notes, but actually, because we only have this one ostinato, we really don't have enough to go on to clearly identify the key. So here we say that the tonality is ambiguous. The bass guitars have really got going and are playing our tonic E, we can now hear that the key of the piece is E minor. The bass guitars are picking out the notes A, C and E, which gives us the chords A minor, C major and E minor. However, these chords are purely chosen for how they sound and have no function and don't take us anywhere in the music. And therefore we say that it's non-functional harmony. Now, as I said earlier, in the key of E minor, what you'd expect to find are some D sharps. And as we look through this score, there isn't a single D sharp. There are, however, some D naturals. I wonder if you can find any. What this means is that, in fact, if you want to be perfectly accurate, we're not in the key of E minor, we're actually in the E Aeolian mode. The major feature that tells us section B has arrived is the change of key. The piece modulates to the key of C minor here. And as I said earlier, this is quite a strange key to modulate to because these two keys are not related. But what we'll find is that as the music switches back and forth, modulating from E minor to C minor and back again, it becomes quite natural. Progression that we have during the C minor sections of this piece is A flat major, B flat major and C minor. Again, these chords are just chosen for how they sound and are an example of non-functional harmony. As guitars 5, 6, 7 and the two bass guitars fade out here, we're left with the same scenario as we had in the beginning, where we don't really have enough notes to identify the key. However, because the tonality has been firmly established now, we don't have the same tonal ambiguity as we had before. Ends on an open E5 chord. This is a chord that has had its third removed, and so it's therefore neither major nor minor. Okay, that concludes this video on tonality and harmony in Setwork 6. Thanks for liking and commenting, and click on the subscribe button below. Bye!